GM. So, today is Friday, 15th of December. Let's do daily levels. 10 days till Christmas, huh? That flew around. So, I'll look at a couple of things. I'm going to look at the total market cap along with Bitcoin, which you can do pretty quickly. In terms of this deviation, looks fine. The relative strength of both is fairly similar. Alts aren't noticeably outperforming yet, so it'll be interesting to see which one makes a new high first, right? So that's really it. There's not a whole lot else to say. Some alts are going up, some alts are going sideways. Broadly, that means we're in a game of rotating profits and chasing the next narrative, right? It's when everything starts to go up and Bitcoin doesn't, and alts, the total cap breaks out, but Bitcoin lags. At that point, you have several days to get out or to secure profits, generally. And I see no reason for that not to happen again. Now, there are occasions where it only happens for a day or two and then we fucking nuke, but given that the ETF is coming, I don't see any major correction before then. We can absolutely move into distribution, but I don't see a massive drop that we stay down from. As you saw, the market tried to drop, went down 10%, found support, we're moving up. The ETF is still such a big driver. But right now, and for the last few days, I've been talking about how now is not a good time to buy spot. Okay, if you want to buy spot and you're worrying about missing the bull run, better opportunities will come. And what you need to do is look at the different charts. So we'll look at total 3 here. We'll go to a daily chart and look at this. Okay, so total 3 is going up, practically vertical. However, it's actually not. I mean, if you drag even it down to this original channel it was in, right? If you imagine it like this original channel where it was to here, deviated a little bit above it, right? Just got a little bit out over its skis. We had a correction. That was a 20% correction on alts. So it was 10% on the index, but 20% across most alts. Kept grinding up and up and up. And so here we have, a tight channel, then a wider channel. Doesn't really matter about the channel. It's just a way to visualize that when price significantly gets outside of that, that's when it's over or close to over. And that is the point that you do not want to buy dips. So if price gets all the way up to here and outside of either of these channels, but especially outside of this one, pushes up into this clear air it has above, that's quite likely to be the last thrust because we've been going up since mid-October. That would quite likely be the last push. And at that point, right, any pullbacks are likely to just lead to bounces, not new highs. And people will buy that dip and this dip and this dip, and eventually they'll get frustrated and bled out of it all the way back down. And the total correction on alts would probably be 50% to 80% on some alts, and the strong ones 20 to 40, right? And so I don't know if the whole total cap goes down just 27%. That's not what I'm saying, but you're waiting to see some signs of overextension, right? Sort of blow off top type action. We're seeing that on some alts, like Injective, for example. Would not be buying Injective here, right? Why? Because Injective has done the vast majority of its move. And yes, it can go higher. Of course it can go higher. But it's now way out and above any of its previous levels. So whether you're drawing fucking crazy trend lines from here, right? It's outside of that, which is insane. Whether you're drawing trend lines rising up, right? It's way far above that. And even if you're drawing one, I guess here is like the last one. And we're even touching off that, which is just a fucking vertical line, practically. So what does that all mean? To me, it's we've broken all-time high, we've gone well above it. It can definitely go more. It's in a blow-off top. It can keep going. Trading it long, right, on the long side, definitely. But to get long on Injective, you want to see it hold up high and tight here, right? If it continues to consolidate up there with very little pullback and everything getting buttoned up, then that's going to go higher. What I want to caution people for is not to buy the first significant correction, first big pullback, because it's going to come up and look like it's bouncing. That is not the pullback to buy, because it's already had all of its big move. So many people, this probably wrecks more people than anything. The time that you should buy is when you don't feel like buying. Excuse me. The time that you should buy is when you don't really feel like buying. Because by the time you feel safe to buy, like, oh, nice, a 30% correction, buy the dip, it's usually too late. Right? This is like Solana in the 2021 bull market. When I was telling everyone, we were trading it from $30 and beyond on here on the way back up in August. From 30 to 40 to 50. I even bought some on the dip at 66. Started to scale out as you get into the hundreds. Right? I was telling people about Solana back here and how bullish it looked, and still look bullish, and still look bullish, and still look bullish. And a lot of people didn't buy it any of the way up because it was vertical, right? They didn't buy it in this correction because it looked like it was over. Then it broke out, went to 250, and so many people were buying the dip to 200. So many. 200, 150, they couldn't wait to buy. Genuinely. So, just don't do that. I don't know where Injective goes to, but I do know that the first dip that you feel like buying is not going to be the dip to buy. That's the general rule. And then for total 3, I'll go back and take a look here at 2019, because the market has a habit of making you forget reality. But don't forget that we are in the pre-halving year. So I don't know if the 4-year cycle is going to play out. But everything is lining up that way yet again. So it would be foolish to dismiss it. I don't think it plays out exactly the same. But I do agree with the cause and effect principle. Law 2 of Wyckoff. Which means that for every effect, you must have a cause. And that simply means for prices to go up, they must first spend a long time accumulating. They must consolidate before they can expand. Right? And so the bull markets have always been roughly the same length. The bear markets have always been roughly the same length, within, very tight, within a few months of each other. Now, again, nothing to do with the 4-year cycle. But if you have equivalent amount of time for accumulation, markup, distribution, markdown, then it's reasonable to expect that you'll have the same amount of time that will pass before the next big markup. What does that mean? Well, let's go back to the 4-year cycle theory. If the 4-year cycle theory is correct, then we are in 2019. Right? We're in the equivalent of 2019. And we're in December. So, in 2019, there were 2 ripping altcoin rallies. There was one, but I'm looking at the downside now because we're deep in a rally already, right? So we had the first rip, then 62% across the board down, and 175 days of down. Never made a new low, right? So you could still class this as bull market. You can still class this as the bottom's in. and it went down 62% for 175 days. That can and will happen to many coins. Don't know if the total 3 will go down 62%, but you understand my point. Then, late 2019, we had another ripping rally, much shorter one this time, 60 days, but far more aggressive. And of course, then we had COVID, 30-day nuke, where everything went down a further 66%. Then we went into the grinding up only phase for, a year or two, year and a half. The point here is not to say that we have a certain size of correction coming. The point is to say that this is how broad-based accumulation works. You set a low, right? You consolidate. Price tries to go up to test demand. Yeah, there's still enough willing sellers, comes back down. Are there enough willing sellers to push lower? No. More willing buyers. Sellers are getting weaker. Buyers are getting stronger. And then away we go. That's how it works. It's just testing. And it takes time. And down here, some buyers step in, but sellers are willing to step in here much sooner. We come back down again, tries to go lower, rejects. More buyers are willing. Gets up here, goes higher because sellers are less willing to sell and buyers are more aggressive. Comes back down, usually front runs by quite a bit as the buyers realize we're winning now, shallower dip, and away we go. I think we're here at the moment, going into the shallower dip. So I think what people have got wrong is that we are not going to see COVID 2.0, but I do think that we will see a front running of these lows going into the next run. So how would that look? Well, it could look something like this, but I don't really want to try and visualize where the top is going to be on this because it doesn't really matter. Okay? What matters most is that we push down, lunar collapse, push down, 3AC collapse, Celsius collapse, push down, FTX collapse, and then beyond. Right. So, liquidation, forced sellers. More forced sellers plus some willing sellers. Price bounces up, and not so much demand. Enough demand to stop it for the merge rally. Price bounces up. Sellers happy to step in because it's brutal and the market was so bearish and sentiment was shit. Right? Pushes down. Not enough buyers willing to step in at these levels. FTX collapse takes us lower. We try to go lower again, and it rejects. So this is the point at which we ran out of sellers. Okay? And buyers took control. So buyers stepped in and said, no, fuck this, pushed it up. But sellers across the alt market were still willing to come in and take profits or exit at a loss or exit or break even or whatever. The alt market was still weak. But we got a nice big sign when this collapse in June happened that the buyers are still in control. Now just marginally, but the buyers stepped back in and we made a higher low. So we have a low, we moved up to a high, we set a higher low, we broke out of that here, and that's when the market became aware that sellers have lost, buyers are in control, and the market wants to go higher. But that doesn't mean we just go up and never come back. What it does mean is that the next low will be above this one. Okay? That's not really a crazy grand statement to say, oh, we're not going to go all the way back down there. The question is whereabouts. I think the market is extremely bullish for the next couple of years. As my last few rants have been talking about, if you don't own crypto, how else can you own any form of property, right? When I say property just means something you actually own that nobody else owns. You don't owe it to anyone, right? There's not a lot that the internet generation can own as a whole. And the smart money knows this. And you've got all the narratives, and you've got AI, and you've got all this extra bullish. And you got the Fed pivoting the other day, and so everything looks good. But even when things look good, you can have 50% drawdowns. That's just part of the game. you can't expect bonk to go up 100x and not pull back 50%, right? And that goes for every coin. So even Solana's gone up 600% this year. You think it can't go down 50% after going up 600%? Of course it can. Like, it'd be silly to think it couldn't. If you go up 600% and then you go down 50%, you are still up. That is how a low to a high to a higher low forms, right? So, at some point, there's going to be a decent dip. My bet is that it doesn't go as deep as people think. So I don't think it goes all the way down to right down to here. And I think it probably can dip below 400 billion, depending on how high we go. Probably can, because there's quite a bit of room there for a low to come in at 400. And so my guess would be that we touch down into this area somewhere. Probably like around there. Right? Now, this depends, of course, on where price goes. If we go into a big extension like that, and we see something like that, that would be totally normal. Right? That wouldn't surprise me at all. If we go even higher, there is a chance that this whole bottoming range is done. Right? And for me, that would have to get out over this. This is really heavy supply here for the total cap. Because this is when Luna was collapsing and unwinding. And all of this here, where it was just lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. That was just forced selling, liquidations. People just could not wait to get out. That's right where we're moving up into now. This is the last big resistance. The leftovers of the bear market. Total 3 has made some great strides. We've broken out of trend lines, right? We've broken the downslope. We've broken a bunch of market structure bullishly. We've broken out over the 2023 highs. We've set a higher low. It's building a lot of positive market structure, but it is still up into resistance here. Now, I do think we go beyond that, but there's a couple of things. If we blast off like that and come back inside, then that's not a breakout. And we head all the way back down, we set a low, and then we go up, right? If it goes way beyond that, if it actually consolidates, breaks out bullish, then distributes, then comes back. If it has a big valid breakout like that, then you're looking at the low to come and form something more like this, where all of this bottom range is done. We spent 18 months there, that's more than enough, and we don't actually go back into it, but we retest it. That would be another possible path. This is not to scale, so timing wise, I'm not saying we rally until March and then we fucking set off until October. I don't know. It's not saying that. But there does have to be some after the big pump or whatever. There has to be some kind of correction into some kind of higher low. That's the one to buy. There is one, at least how I am basing this, there is one big last final correction coming that will give you the best chance to allocate your winners, allocate towards who you think is going to be the winners for the next bull market, get in spot, pick your horses essentially, and then ride it. That is weeks away, if not months away from forming. I just don't think that we go up like this without a pullback. A lot of people are looking at this as if like 2020, but look at the steep slope, right? We're currently on just a fucking parabolic upslope. People are comparing this to 2020, saying that we just grind up and up and up. But this was much shallower, which is important. Because when you have upward sloping accumulation, it rises slowly, keeps going up, doesn't make any new lows, moves up, retests, moves up, and then this is where it started to go vertical here, and then it blasted off. But it had built a nice significant base on the way up. We haven't built really a base on the way up here. We're actually just ramping up vertical. And so, unless we see a massive breakout, right? If we see a breakout to 600 billion, you see 600 billion, then I think that can hold and it can flip as an SR. chop around there, and then blast off, right? That can happen as well. So there's a bunch of different paths, and we're right at this point now. We're at a key point on the chart. So the next few weeks will be very telling, and we'll give you an insight into what comes next. So alts, that's alts, covered Bitcoin. Bitcoin in total, there's not really a big divergence in them yet, which is good. And we'll just see what happens from here. So GM, see you later on Casual Fridays at 5 p.m. and check out Trade of the Day now, where I'll talk about my plans to close the bonk trade shortly and rotate into the next big thing. GM.